Okay, so I'm going to show you how to set up your company for Sage 50 accounts for your QQI questions. So first of all, you click at the top right there, Add Company. So I've launched my software already and just click Add Company. And just bring the screen over here. And by default, it's set up a new company on the first screen and you just click Next on that. And the second screen is looking for the company name, so you take that from your question. And I'm using Happy Days Limited and it's in Adair, and that is Limerick. And the country is Ireland, obviously, so just click the drop down, put in I, and all the I countries come up. So there's Ireland, and select it. And you'll be given some contact details, so just put in whatever you're given in your question. And that's all I have there, and I click Next. Business type is important to click limited company. Here it is Happy Days Limited Ltd on the title, so it's a limited company. And you click Next. And in your question you'll also be told the financial year, so ours begins in January, so we click January there and it's 2020 and we click Next on that. You may or may not be given a VAT registration number, so you might have a no option here. I'm staying with yes, I have a VAT number and I'm going to input that number there, and you just have to check your question for that. You'll also be given a standard VAT rate, and in your question the standard VAT rate is set at 20%. And we click Next. And the default currency is Euro, so again from the drop down select Euro and click Next. And again check with your tutor, you may or may not be using a password for your question. So you could leave this blank. Check with your tutor or your question. I'm using pass, and just enter it twice to confirm it and click Next. And the final step is just to confirm the details. If you're not happy with anything on this screen, you can click back and redo it. Otherwise click Create. And then it takes a couple of minutes to build the database for that company. And you'll only have to do this once. And once you have it done, it'll prompt you to enter the company accounts and you can start processing your data. So there, it's done. And now I have to enter my password. Logon name first is manager. So manager, and if you put in a password, you've got to use it here. So click OK, and it'll ask you if you want to customize your company. So I'm going to click Close on that. I can do that myself afterwards. So I'm going to click Close, and that should bring us into our accounts, and it does. It tells me I'm in Happy Days Limited accounts in my Sage 50, and I'm done. So I'm just going to check the VAT rates for my company. When I was setting up the company initially, I did set a default VAT rate of 20%, the standard rate for your questions, and I need to add another rate. So I'm just going to go here to Settings and Company Preference. I need to put in my password, which is pass, in order to change any preferences. So click OK. And in here I can click on the VAT tab, and it just tells me that there's a list of tax codes. So there's my T1, and I need to put in a T2 there as well, so I can cancel out of that. So the T2 is going to be the 13.5% that I need for one of my invoices. So I'm just going to cancel there, and if I go to the settings and configuration, and in there I have a tax codes tab, so click on tax codes, and if I click on T2, so just after T1 there, it's 20%. Actually T2 is exempt transactions, so I'm going to leave that as it is. I'll take T3 there, and I'll edit that, and the rate there needs to be 13.5%, and it's part of the VAT return. This is tax usually on services, and click OK on that. So now I see T3 listed at 13.5%, and so I'm going to apply that to my accounts data and save, or save as, just saves it to the overall configuration of the account. So click save and close, and that's that done. So that allows me to have the 13.5% rate accessible on my invoices. Okay, so the next part of my question asked me to set up customer accounts. So I already have 2 accounts set up there already, so I'm just going to go ahead and do the next one. So I'm in customers on the left, and I'm going to click on the drop down for new edit, and I'm going to take the wizard here. It's just a little bit easier and steps it out for you. So the next customer I'm going to set up is Catkins Limited, and it puts in a default account reference. I'm going to leave that as it is. I do have a street and an address there, and just to change the country there to Ireland, from the drop down just press I and you can select Ireland there, and next. So contact details, I wasn't given any contact details in my question here, so I'm going to click next on that. And the defaults, the nominal code is 4,000, that's for all credit sales, and the default nominal code for sales, you can tick that and it'll use the 4,000. You can tick it, you don't have to tick that one actually. The tax code T120, I would tick that one. It's generally the 20% VAT rate, the default for that. And I'm going to click next. Credit limit, again, you may or may not be given credit limit details. I'm just going to put in a default of 10,000 on the credit limit for each of my customers, and 60 days settlement. And the most important thing on this screen is to click on the terms agreed, and also to change the account opening date to the beginning of the year. So the first 2020 is when I started my financial year, and my customers need to be there on that date. So terms agreed and account opened are important there, and click next. I'm not using bank details for bank receipts on this, so I can click next on that and leave it blank, and the same with the bank account step. I can just click next on that. And the final step then, do you wish to post an opening balance? So the answer there is no, and that's there by default. There's no opening balance on this, and click create. So it adds my customer there, and now I'm going to click on wizard again, and this time I'm adding cash sale as customer, and just that'll keep track of my cash sales through the one account. And there's no contact details or anything on that. I'll just switch it to Ireland just for completeness, and next on that. And the nominal codes, you can use the same nominal code, 4,000, or you can switch to one of the other sales accounts just to keep it separate. 4001 I'll use for this one, and the tax default is 20%, so I'll use that, and click next. Credit limit, again, there's no limit given in your question, but I'm just going to put in a default on all of these, just so that I can agree the terms, and it just means it won't be coming up as having exceeded limits and things like that. So most important to click terms agreed, and the account was opened on the 1st of the 1st, and click next. Again, there's no bank details on this, so I click next through to the last, and no, there's no opening balance either, so create on that, and that's the 4 customers created. Okay, so now I'm on to creating my suppliers. So I have 3 done, and I'm just going to do the next one. And I'm going to take the wizard again with this, and it just steps me through it. So this time the supplier is Vodafone, so Vodafone, and that is in St. Stephen's Green. And just put in the address there, and again just to switch the country to Ireland, and there was no other contact details given there, so I'm just going to click next. And the nominal code for suppliers defaults to purchases at 5,000 is the code for materials purchased, but I don't buy materials from Vodafone. It's a telephone service. It's an overhead, so I'm going to switch that to 7550. Now you'll see there you could also use mobile charges, so either of those. I'm just going to put it through the 7550 for telephone. And the tax code is fine, I can use that default, and actually it'll be different on this one probably, so I'm going to use the default on that and just click next. And the credit limit, again I wasn't given a credit limit, so you can put in a default one if there's one not given, and just make sure you agree the terms. And again the account was there at the beginning of the financial year, so just put in that date and click next. And again there's no bank details for payment to this supplier, so I click next, and there's no opening balance either, so I can click create on that. So that Vodafone is slightly different to the others. I'm just going to do the final supplier here, which is Bark and Pearl Limited. And the address there was O'Connell Street, and it's in Limerick. And again just to switch the country there to Ireland, and I'll click next. I don't have any other contact details. So supplier defaults. Now this is one that's supplying materials or goods that I need for my store, so I'm leaving the default there at 5,000, which is correct for most of my suppliers, and the tax code is fine, so I'm going to click next on that. And again, if you're given a credit limit in your question, you can pop that in there, or settlement days might be 30 or 60 days. And make sure you agree the terms, and also input the date of the start of your question there as the account open date, and just click next. There's no bank details and there's no opening balance, you can create on that. So now all my suppliers are listed, and if I want to edit or change anything, you can just double click and it'll bring you into the details for that, and you can change any of the details if you want to check them or feel you've got them wrong. Okay, and close on that. Okay, so next we're going to look at the bank accounts and also the creation of director's loan. So we're going to do a journal entry for that. So first of all, just have a look at the bank accounts that are on the system by default. There are a number of accounts listed, and the one that we are using is the 1,200 bank current account. And we're lodging 40,000 into that account, and that's coming from a director's loan. I'm just going to switch to the nominal codes here, where you'll see that the bank account receiving the money, the debit entry will be to the current account, the 1,200 account, and that's going to be coming from the director's loan account. And if I expand the liabilities there, creditors, long-term loan 2301, director's loan is what we'll be using, so that's the credit entry there. So in nominal codes, I'm going to click journal entry, and I'm going to reference this journal entry as director's loan, and the posting date is the date of the entry. It's on the 1st of the 1st 2020. And the nominal code, as I saw there, for my bank account is 1,200. And that's the current account. I don't need the extra reference there. I'm just putting in the details that it's a director's loan. Tax code is T9, and if I use the drop down, see T9 is a zero code, so there's no tax on that entry. So that's okay at T9. So this is a debit entry. The current account is receiving the 40,000, so debit that at 40,000. And then I'm tabbing down to the next line, and the credit entry, that money is coming from the director's loan 2301 account, 2301. And again, I'll just tab out, and again, the details that it's a director's loan. It's T9, tax account, zero rate tax, and this is a credit entry of 40,000. So that puts 40,000 into my current account and creates the liability to the director of 40,000. So debits and credits are matching there, and I can click save on that. And if I close this screen for the journal entry, I'll see then that the current assets, the bank account, has gone up there by 40,000 and the liabilities have 40,000. And I'll see in my bank account then my current account has 40,000 listed there. So that's done. Okay, so now I'm going to start processing my dockets, my invoices, and the first one I have is a sales invoice to Griffin Limited. So Griffin is a customer, you should see them listed there as a customer. So I click customers on the left, and I'm going to do a batch invoice, and on this screen I'm going to pick out Griffin's account, and the date of the invoice was the 5th, so 05/01/2020, and the due date comes up automatically. Reference, I'm going to put in there the invoice number so that I can check it back to that, reference back to that. I don't need the extra reference column, and the nominal code is set by default when I set up Griffin as a customer, so 4,000 is correct there. And department I don't need either, or project reference, so the details is just credit sales. And the net amount on this docket, and again just follow the instructions at the bottom of your docket. So 14,500 is the net amount, the amount before tax. The tax code is defaulting at T1, which is 20%, and the tax amount then should be appearing by default 2,900, and that matches my document. And I don't have anything paid, so that's all I have to put in there. I click save on that, and I can go to my next invoice. So the next one is Tolkien. I can select from the drop down or just type TO and it'll pop up for me, and tab. And tab key is a great way of moving through these screens quickly and without any strain with clicking. So the date of that document, the invoice date, the 6th of the 2nd. The reference is the invoice number, and the nominal code is correct by default. It's credit sales. The net amount was 6,750, and the VAT amount is 1,350, and it's done that automatically. And again, I could just put in all the invoices in one go here. So for example, I could put in the next one, which is Atkins, and the date on that document is the 10th. The 1st, sorry, these are all on the 1st. I should have changed that, so I'll just change it there now. And this is the 10th of the 1st, and the reference is 2003. Again, it's credit sales. The net amount 14,300, and the VAT amount appearing there. Just cross check it with your document, 2860 correct, and so on. So I can continue on. The next one is actually cash sale. So I can select cash sale there, and again the 8th. So again, just check the date on your docket. They should be all in the same month. And the invoice number is your reference number, and this one is cash sale going to 4001. That's all set by default, so you don't need to change anything, and just details it's a cash sale. The net amount here is 2,600, and the VAT then comes to 520, which is correct. Now on that cash sale item, I will also have to do a lodgement, so I can do that separately, and I'll show you how to do that now in a moment. Okay, so when you're doing the cash sale, you can put through the cash sale itself, as I said, through the batch customer invoice screen. So you've put in your details there as normal. You might have the other invoices there as well. And you see at the end of this line here, you can also put in the amount paid. So with the cash sale, they're paying at the same time. So it's a good idea to put it through there, the 3120, and you can put through the payment date as the same date as the sale. And the bank account is defaulting to our current account, which is correct. And the payment reference, you see at the bottom of your invoice there a lodgement slip reference, so you can pop that in there, 2367 in this question. So just check your document for that, and that will be done then for you. So you can do the two steps there together. Okay, now if you don't want to do that, you can put through the cash sale itself on its own, and you can go to, I'll just leave that, I won't save it for the moment. I have already put through the cash sale, but you could also go to the bank account and go to your customer receipts, and in this screen you could put through the receipt of the money from the cash sale separately. So if I select cash sale there, and the date of that transaction was the 8th of the 2nd 2020. The receipt details, then the amount of the receipt is 3120, and the reference number is the lodgement slip 2367. And I just pop down to the receipt screen here and pop in the amount, or there's a pay in full option, so it detects the sale and I can just pay that in full or just type it in. There was no discount or anything on this, so you click save on that, and just always check the dates before you click save on any of the screens. And actually that was the 8th of the 1st, so I'm going to make sure I save it at that and click save and close out of that. And just on my customers, I'll see there that the transactions have gone through. The balance on the cash sale is 0, which is correct because it was paid off, and that looks all okay. Okay, so the next thing we have to do is a sales credit note. So again, I'm in my customers module and I want to do a batch credit. So if I select batch credit, and I want to do a credit note to Catkins, so I'll make sure that the account reference is Catkins, and the date of the credit note, in this case the 4th of the 1st 2020, and just tab along, and the credit note number is given in your docket there, 2008. You just check that in your own question. And the nominal code for the credit is default at 4,000, which is correct. I don't need department or project reference, and just a detail that it's a credit note. The net amount then from your docket, again just check your own docket, net 2,800 in this case, and again the tax defaulting at T1, which is correct, giving a VAT total of 560, and you can check those figures down here as well. So I click save on that and close, and that then is entering the credit note, but I want to match that credit note back to the invoice number 2003. So I have to allocate it. So I go to the bank module, so click bank accounts on the left, and from there then we go to customer receipt, and if I select the Catkins, okay, and the receipt date, I want to put that in the same as the credit note, so just to match that there. And I don't enter the amount. The credit note and the invoice are listed here on that account for me, so I am really just matching one against the other. So I take the credit note, which is listed at the end there, and I can type in the amount of the credit note or pay in full. It just populates the 3360 there, and I want to allocate that against the invoice, and again here I have to type in the amount, so 3360 goes in there, and that brings the analysis total back to 0. So that's important in this step of allocating credit note, and I'll just reference it as a credit note. And it's important that you don't put in any amount here that's left at 0. It's in these 2 fields that the amount of the credit note goes, and analysis total goes to 0. So click save on that, and that should be my credit note done. So close on that, and that's it. Okay, so I'm just putting through the purchases invoices, so very similar to the sales side, but this time we click on suppliers and we go to batch invoice, and this screen opens here. So I have 3 already entered. I'm just going to go to the next one, and the supplier here is food suppliers, and I can type it in or select from the drop down, and the dates on all of these are really important on all your screens, that you get your dates correct, and tab along then to the relevant fields. So we don't need the due on, but the reference is the invoice number 204. The default nominal code is 5,000, which is correct, and you don't have to change that. And the details, I'm just putting in credit purchases here, so I know it's purchases. So it is important to put in details on all your entries. The net amount of the docket is 2250, and the default tax is T1, and the VAT on that is populating at 415. Just cross check it and it's correct, and that's all I have to do there. So I'm going to save on that, just to move it up so you can see the save button, and I'm going to click save, and I'll do the Vodafone a little bit differently, so just click save on that one. Okay, so now I'm going to put through the last purchase, which was my Vodafone. So I'm going to go to suppliers, again, batch invoice, and this time I'm picking up the Vodafone account. The date of that invoice was the 10th of the 1st, 2020. And tab along the reference is the invoice number, 0532 in this case. Just watch your docket for it. Extra reference I don't need, and the nominal code for this one is 7550. That's there by default because we set it up that way, so I don't need to change anything. I tab along until I come to the details, and in there it's just phone is all I need to put in there, just a short reference. And the net amount on the docket is 65. And the tax code is, it should be 13.5%, so it's not T1, we set it up under T3. So I'm going to select T3 there, and my tax is coming up at 878, and just to check the docket is the same, so that's okay. And there isn't an amount paid on this, so there's nothing else on that screen, and my date is correct. Just to check that, and click save. And I can close on that, and that's all my purchases done. Okay, so now I'm going to do a supplier credit note. So Purchases credit note, purchase returns there. So I'm in suppliers on the left panel, and I'm going to batch credit. And the first thing I do then is pick out the suppliers, so it's Best Pets, and the date of that credit note was the 15th of the 1st. So again, just double check all of the dates on your docket. Due date, just tab through that, and the credit note number, I have to put that in. And I don't need the extra reference. The nominal code is default is correct, and tab along to the details, and just so to say that it's a credit note or a purchase return. And 450 is the net amount, and the tax code T1 gives me 90 in VAT, and that's correct. So I can save that and close on that screen. And then with credit notes, again, there's this extra step. So you can allocate the credit note under Supplier Payment, and you get the same button under the bank Supplier Payment screen. So same idea there. So you just pick up the supplier again. So it was Best Pet Supplies, and the date of the credit note is the 15th of the 1st. 2020. There's no check number or amount to go in here. You simply go to the credit note entry, which is the second line, and that's pay in full, and you put the same amount. You type in the 540 there opposite the first invoice. So these two match. 0 in here, and the analysis total goes to 0, and you click save on that and close. So that extra step there for the credit note. Okay, so the next part of my question requires me to record checks that I've received from customers. So again, I go to the bank accounts module, and I click on customer receipt. And the first thing I have to do here is pick up the first customer that paid me, so Catkins in this question. So just select your customer there, and the date of the payment. Then again, as I said, date's really important on all of these screens. And this time the amount of the payment goes in here, 12,500 in this case, and I'm just going to reference the lodgement slip, so 2364 lodgement, and I'm going to allocate on the same screen then the amount of 12,500 going towards that invoice. So again, just double check your date and the amount, the reference is in, and the receipt amount is put in, and there is no discount or anything on this, so the analysis total goes to the same as the check amount, and you just click save on that. And then I can go to the next one, and it is Griffin, and the date is again from your document, whatever you have there, so the 24th in my case, and the amount is 12,000, and the reference for that lodgement 2365. And again, just come down to the receipts and pop in the 12,000 there received. There is no discount details or anything there, so the analysis of 12,000 is correct, and that looks okay. And the next one then is Tolkien, so Tolkien, and the date of that is the 25th of the 1st 2020. The amount of the check was 8,000, and the reference is 2366, and the receipt amount 8,000. So I'm not paying any of these off in full. I'll have a balance left on all of them, so I click save on that as well, and that one is done, and I can close out of that screen. Okay, so now I want to do supplier payments. These are my remittance documents, and I'm going to go to bank account and payments, supplier payment. You can get the same screen through suppliers and supplier payment. There's the same screen. So the first remittance I have here is for Animal Magic. So put that in, and the date of the payment. The check number 10032, and just follow the details from your document 1300, and the allocations on the same screen. I'm going to pop that amount in there into payment 1300, and it allocates against this invoice here. So there's no discount on it. The payment is 1,300 is correct, and I click save on that. And then I'm on to the next one, and this pay is Bark and Purr. And the date of that document is 26th of the 1st 2020. The check number, again, just follow the details from your remittance advice, and the amount is 2,100. And again, I pop that into the payment field opposite the relevant invoice. So down here 2,100, and I could have also clicked paid in full and would have picked up the full amount of that invoice there. So that's okay, there's no discount or anything here, and click save. And I'll keep going. The next remittance again is to food supplies, and date, the check number, and the amount. And again, I pop that amount into the payment field, and the analysis total, just cross check that, and that's okay. And there's a couple of remittances in this question, depends on your question really. And food supply is next, and that's on the 27th of the 1st 2020, and the check number and then the check amount, and again a payment there of 200. And if you tab along, you'll see the analysis total pop up, or just click into the next field, click save. And just one more, and this is to food supply again, and it's the 27th. The check number is 10036, and the amount in this case is just €50, so 50 payment, 50 there. Tab along or click to the next field and click save, and that's the. Okay, so now I'm going to record the payments of expenses. So I have a payment of rent and a payment of salaries. So I'm just going to show you first of all where to get the nominal codes for these accounts, because there's so many nominal accounts you wouldn't necessarily know them off. So if you click nominal codes there on the left, and you'll see that these expenses are under overheads, so I expand the overheads there, and under gross wages I can see staff salaries is 7003, so I'm just going to make a note of that. I can post the payment to that account. And the other one is rent payment, and if I expand rent and rates there, rent, the nominal code for that is 7100. So it's important to be able to know where to find those, and they're under nominal codes. So now to actually process the payments, if I go to bank account, and under payments, under that drop down, there's bank payment there, so click on bank payment, and these are all going to be paid out of my current account, so just to make sure that that's there first of all, and that's 1,200 is the code for that, so that's default, that's okay. The date of the rent payment is the 28th of the 1st 2020, and the reference is direct debit 1, I don't need the extra reference, but I do need the code for rent expense, so it's 7100. And I tab along then, so I'm just going to call it rent, and the net amount of that payment is 700, and there's no tax on a payment, so you want to select a T0. Will you find any of the 0 rates will do there? Technically it's probably a T9, but I'll just leave it at T0 for now, it's fine. And I can go to the next line and I can process the next payment there again from bank account, current account 1200. The date of the salaries payment in this case is the 28th of the 2nd 2020, and it's direct debit 2. And this time the code is to salaries, which is 7003. And I tab along then to my details, and the amount of that is 1,600. And again, there's no tax on any payment like this, so select a 0 rate there. So 2 payments totaling 2,300, and I have the correct dates. Actually I don't, look at that, really important to double check the dates before you process, and click save on that. Okay, so the next part of the question is to make an adjustment for a prepayment and also an adjustment for an accrual. So just to explain that a little bit, I'm told that staff salaries payable are 600 and rent prepaid is 350. So if I take the staff salaries payable, that means that of the salaries that I paid in the last transaction, payment of 1,600, some of that, there's another bit due on that, I should say. So there's a creditor or liability there, a short-term liability. And if I open the nominal codes here, I can see that there's an accruals account. So I'm going to create an accrual there of the salaries for 600. And I'm also told then there's a prepayment on the rent. So I've prepaid my rent by 350, so I need to put that in there. So to do this then, I am in nominal codes and I'm going to do a journal entry. And you can do the two together or separate. I'll just do them separate so that it's clear what I'm doing and that they're not related to each other. So the posting date again is really important that I get the date correct. So for the staff salaries, I am going to debit the expense account that I had earlier, 7,300 was the, 7003. Let me get that right, 7003. And I don't need the extra reference. I'm going to tab along to details and just explain that this is salaries due. So there's no tax on any of this and it's a debit on that. So I'm just putting in the staff salaries payable 600. So I owe another 600 there in salaries. And there's, for every debit on the journal entry, there's a corresponding credit. So the credit entry here is posting to that accruals account 2109. Again, I'm going to tab along and just put in the same details, salaries due, and it's T9, and this time it's a credit and it's 600. So that's creating the liability that I owe staff salaries of 600. So at the end of a journal entry, your debits should equal your credits, and you click save on that. And then I'm going to do the prepayment. And the prepayment, again, the date on that, the 28th of the 1st, 2020. And the debit entry is the prepaid asset 1103. It's a prepayment account, and I'm going to tab along and just note that this is rent prepaid. And again, it's T9, there's no tax on the debit there. The amount is 350. And tab down to the next line, and I'm crediting that rent account that I had earlier and tab along, rent prepaid, and this time it's a credit of 350. So debits and credits matching then at the end, and click save on that, and that's your accrual and prepayment created. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the bank reconciliation. So very important here that you have your pen in hand, and when you go into bank reconciliations you tick off the matching items. So we go to our bank module on the left here, and we go to reconcile, and I'm going to put in the statement reference here. I'm just going to put in the date of the statement. And the ending balance on that statement is 68720. So I just take that from the last figure in the statement, and just the statement date there again. So that's all I need to fill in up there at the top, and I click OK on that. And then I can see all the transactions that I have recorded, and I can double click them if they're a match. So as I go through them, I can see the 40,000 receipts there, so that's a match. So I can just double click it and it moves to the other side of the screen, the bottom of the screen, and I tick it off on my statement. The 3120 is also a match, and the 12,500 is a match. So I'm double clicking and ticking off on my list. The 1,200 is there, 12,000 I should say, and there's also an 8,000, all matching. 1,300 is matched, 2,100 is matched, the 1,000 is matched. There's a 200 purchase payment, and there's 1,600 in salaries matched, and the rent of 700 is matched. And that leaves one item unmatched, and that's fine, that's correct, because I can see that the statement balance is matching what I have matched here. And there's one item that will go into next month's statement, so that's all correct. The difference has gone to 0. And if you see down at the bottom of the screen here, you have the option to save progress. So if there was something missing here, you could save your progress on the reconciliation, close out of it, and then come back in and continue on with the reconciliation. I'm asked to do the reconciliation, but before I do that, I ought to generate the report. So you'll see in your question that you are asked to compare the bank statement received with your bank account and produce and print a bank reconciliation statement. So you have to do that report before you click the reconcile button. So stay away from reconcile. Don't go near that until you have the report done. So once I get the difference to 0, I can click report. So it's going to generate the report. And you can save that report then by clicking export, and you can save it to your directory wherever you're told to save it for your exams. So I'm just going to put it in here to downloads, and I'll click save there. And I can come back to that to print it later. So once I have generated the PDF report and saved it, click reconcile, and that's your bank reconciliation done. Okay, so when you have all your transactions processed, you need to do a backup, and the procedure for that is just to close out of the various windows and just go back to File and Backup. And in the backup screen, generally I would select all file types to include in the backup. The file name is default is fine. I don't have any reason to change it, and the location is important that you browse to the location that you're told to back up to for your exam. So I have a folder set up here in downloads for myself, so make sure you have your folder set up and save all your reports and backups to the one location for the exam. So I have my bank reconciliation put in here into downloads into a relevant folder, so I click on that and click OK. So would you like to check your data? There is no need to check data unless you have gone back in and out of the accounts a few times or have left it for a while. Generally you won't need to do this in the exam, so I'm just going to say no here, and it runs through the backup. So again, it just takes a couple of minutes to back up all the data and save it to that folder that you have created. And again, make sure that's something that you've practiced with your tutor beforehand, where the backup file has to be, where the reports have to be, that they're all in the one location, and usually your name will be on that folder so that your work can be identified. So there are marks allocated for the backup file. So again, just takes a few minutes to run through this. And it'll tell you then when the backup is actually completed. So you don't need to click anything or do anything. And there we go, the backup has been successful, and I click OK, and it'll automatically close out of that screen. That's done. Okay, so we've done the backup and we're almost at the end of the question, just to generate some reports. So to get the reports we want, the trial balance, the trading profit and loss account and the balance sheet, those three can be found under nominal codes. So there's your trial balance, your profit and loss and your balance sheet. So I'm just going to generate as an example the profit and loss account, and you take the preview option is fine, and you can run that, and you generally have to put in the parameters for the report. So we can just go from January to January, month 1 to month 1, just do it for that month and click OK, and it'll generate the report, and it'll always balance anyway, so you won't know really whether it's right or wrong, but you get marks for just generating the report as it is. So on that then you click export, and that will give you an option then to save it, and save it back to the folder where your other reports are. And I'll just save that there as a PDF file, and all the reports are generated in that way. So I can close that out. And the other report then, the final report, is the VAT return. So I can click on VAT on the left panel, and if I click on VAT return, and again you have to put in the parameters. So I was just doing transactions for January, yours might be February or whatever is in your question, and I'm going to do 1 month VAT return, January to January. And again, if I just click on the calculate VAT return button, it will bring up the figures on the screen, so I can see there's something actually returning. And if I'm happy with that, then I can print the VAT return, and VAT return and its preview, and click run. And again, once I do that, it brings up a preview of it, and I can simply export that file and put it into my backup folder, and all my reports will be there, and click save. and you can get permission then from your exam supervisor to print out those reports as needed, and you're done. So just some filing points if you are having any trouble with reports or that in the nominal codes. If, for example, your trial balance isn't working, just try the reports option and you'll see all the reports there as well. So you click on trial balance, and the transactional trial balance, preview that, gives you the option to input the dates. So if I go from the 1st of the 1st 2020 to the end of the year 2020, which is just going to have my January transactions anyway, and click OK, that'll generate the report for you, and you can export that then to your exam folder. And likewise with the other reports, the balance sheet is there and the profit and loss is there as well, and you can just run those. And the other item, just if you want to check a transaction and that it's processed correctly, or if you feel something's gone wrong, if you go to transactions, you can drill down to the individual transactions. So for example here, the rent payment of 700 by direct debit, I can double click into that and I can edit some of the details, and I can edit the amount of the payment, etc. And sometimes if it doesn't let you edit, I'm just going to close out of that, I don't need to change it. If it doesn't let you edit, you can simply delete the entry if you feel that it's wrong and redo it, put it through again through your normal screen. Okay. Okay, so when you're finished your exam, just check your exam folder that your name is on it, and your examiner will have told you where to save that folder and the relevant files. And in that folder, you're going to have your bank reconciliation report, your balance sheet report, your profit and loss report, your trial balance, and your VAT return. And also you'll have your backup file. And remember, the PDFs can be open and you can view them and print them out from there. So just get permission from your supervisor in the exam first before you print. And your backup file, that's not something that you will open without being in the application. So double clicking it and opening it won't work. You have to be in the application. So just to see it there is enough, you have it there and you'll be getting your marks for it. So just always double check your folder and what you're submitting for the exam is correct.